following broadcast contains what today is known by our tyrannical governments as hate speech. Listener discretion is advised. Do not play this around children or the mentally unstable. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the revolution. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the anti-broadcast. One last standing. Revolutionary platform. Free open radio. Free thought and free minds. I don't know about you, but I'm fucking sick of the liars. I'm fucking sick of the tax.
Welcome, folks. The anti-broadcast. Just a little bit of an experiment that I cooked up there with the use of the awesome track, Ancient Heavy. Fuck, I should remember this. It's a good track. Check it out on freemusicarchive.com. It's the darkest track I've heard in quite a while. Ancient Heavy Tech Donjon by Komiku. So how are you all, folks? I'm tired. I haven't slept. I got like a half an hour. No, actually I did get another 2 hours. It's kind of hard to, keep track when you're exhausted, That's why they tell you not to drive if you haven't slept in like a day. Even coming up to the 18-20 hour mark, you shouldn't be behind the wheel. You have no control. We need to learn the limits of our bodies, folks, if we're going to have responsibilities like getting behind the wheel of a car. A responsibility that I think that is kind of being abandoned, really, as a cyclist. But hey, that's just me digressing. I can always find a problem with things, and that's why you listen to the anti-broadcast. Welcome, the 6th of February, we passed this EB Radio 7th year anniversary without any kind of pomp and circumstance or even a show. We didn't even have a show for the 2nd of February because, like I said, I'm exhausted. Insomnia. This world is slowly killing me, folks. And it's almost a full-time job to preserve your spiritual alignment and groundedness and inner strength and inner resolve, while also not getting lost in ignorance about what's going on out in the world. A certain amount of ignorance is important, like the Catholics call it, learned ignorance. That's good to a degree, I would say, because you can't take it all in. But we can't fall to the other side of the equation, which is represented by most Irish people. Let's call a spade a spade. Tomorrow, Gemma O'Doherty, the very edgy investigative journalist who has been censored off of YouTube, had a few very interesting choice videos taken down. She's going to be covering the fluoridation problem in Ireland. And not just from a lens of general health, but how that might actually have something to do with the fact that we're a nation of spineless pushovers. And the problem is that you can't necessarily escape the fluoridation. I have the luxury of drinking from a well in my home, and it comes from a beautiful national park. There's water. It comes from underground. It's full of lime. Lovely. But like you, even like city people, whenever I go out, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea. I'm pretty sure that in the bottled drinks that they sell us, that's coming from some of the water, or at least is coming from the municipal water supply. And they tell us, this is what they say, I haven't found any scientific evidence to match this, that it calcifies the pineal gland. And even if that were true, by the way, I don't know what the pineal gland does. I don't think science knows what it does. But it certainly was honored in the most wisest of ancient societies, including Egypt. So tune in for that on GMR Diaries YouTube. And if you miss it, of course, you can just catch up. It'll be archived. Unless, of course, they decide to wipe her off of the network altogether, which is something that is increasingly happening to increasingly tamer people. I myself have received my 4th, possibly my 5th, ban off of Facebook. I don't tend to use it as to proselytize challenging ideas, just generally to keep in touch with my folks. But even then, I get banned, and my business has suffered as a result. It's a faceless corporation. You can't actually talk to these people. We're entering into a very dangerous world that is going to consume us if we don't wake up from it. What can we look at today to convince you that you live in the 9th circle of hell? I don't mean to do that, folks, really. I would rather that we were empowered, that we felt good about our future. We can feel good about our future. It's just the medium is the message, as Marshall McLuhan said. And sadly, the internet is a very hard-on, full-on medium. When you look for corruption and truth, conspiracy, lies, duplicity, you will find it, and in ample amounts, especially since when we talk about the internet, we're talking about social media. We have to seriously have our whereabouts with us when we're interacting with this machine that is designed to sense what it is that we occupy our time with and flood us with yet more and more of that. Whether our escape is endless entertainment, endless titillation, endless funny memes, endless corruption, which we're going to look at. Yes, you will get more. The one thing, though, that's missing from the internet is what can be found on this medium of radio, which is a lens to see this information through. A presenter, a journalist on the other end, giving you reassurance that we can make it through this, that we can be strong enough to look at what's actually happening and digest it healthily. Only a few short hours ago, Irish Independent pushing out boundaries on school sex education, abortion and porn among the topics under discussion for RSE, writes Catherine Donnelly. Will porn make it into the school curriculum? It is among many issues in the big debate over how to modernize the relationship and sex education program in schools to make it fit for purpose for pupils. That's interesting. I don't know whether it was the fact that I went to a shit school, but I was not. We were talking very early 2000s in secondary school. I was not at all enlightened or engaged in the sexual education. Neither was it called RSE. Sexual education, I can understand. I guess the pupils might be lacking it from their parents, from their family. They might even be getting distorted ideas in a very dark and sinister manner from their families. So sexual education, that here's a penis, here's a vagina, and here are the misconceptions about the sexual act that could, lead to disease and pregnancy. Fantastic. But RSE, relationships and sex education, that kind of broadens it. To say a little bit would be to insult the good listener. It massively widens its scope. And you should be frightened and offended and angered on behalf of the children of this nation and your children if you, in fact, are sending any to this horrific fucking shit show that we call the Irish education system. Catherine continues, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NCCA, is well advanced in its review of RSE, the first in 20 years. Huh? It was sought by former Education Minister Richard Bruton last spring, and a final report is due this summer. When RSE was introduced in the mid-90s... What? RSE was introduced in the mid... Well, that's not what they called it to us. Huh. You learn something new every day. The emphasis was on avoiding teen pregnancy and preventing sexual transmitted diseases, as I told you. But there is an acknowledgement now that it must encompass a broader spectrum of topics and take a fresh approach. Oh, we all have a fresh approach, right? This is what modern dictatorships and corporations do when they want to convince you that they're your friend, that they're doing something for your benefit and not for their benefit at all. No, just completely out of the goodness of their own hearts. They're taking a fresh approach. Fucking horse shit. A broader spectrum of topics. How broad do you need to be? I don't know how to formulate a thought that, it's like if someone came along to you and said, "What do you mean the sky's blue? What are you on about? It's red." And you have to kind of come up with some kind of explanation. This is the obvious. We live in a very strange time, folks, where so many things are taken for granted, which encroach on civil liberty, the integrity of the human being, morality itself. Just recently, James Corbett of the Corbett Report, he put out a bit of a vlog there, and he was expressing his dismay while making a prior video called the TSA and Other Experiments in Evil. That looking at these videos of young children being fondled by officers of the United States, in quotes, to the point where they were crying and protesting, and they felt violated. He had to give up. He had to hand the job over to one of his colleagues or one of his employees. I don't understand his business structure, but he outsourced the very painful experience of watching children being molested, basically, in order to make a video demonstrating a sick psychological experiment at the cost of civil liberties. And he was... It's not that it dumbfounded him, but he was quite angered by the fact that propaganda worked so well that people are being convinced that they're the weird ones if they think grown adults touching children is okay because, oh, TSA, terrorists, 9/11. It's the same shit with things like fucking relationships and sex education. Or this current iteration of it where it must encompass a broader spectrum of topics and take on a fresh approach. You know who also can take on a fresh approach? A bank robber, a rapist. These people are equally capable of taking on fresh approaches when they realize they need to change their tactics. We need to watch the NLP here, folks, being used on us so that it's subtly suggested to us that this is a positive thing, this is a good thing. Continuing with Catherine's write-up, the NCCA review covers primary and post-primary, and any changes to the curriculum would be age-appropriate. A paper prepared by Dr. Celine Keating, Professor Mark Morgan, and Dr. Bernie Collins for the NCCA says that internationally, best practice is moving towards a holistic sexual education approach. Oh, we all love holism today. We all love holistic approaches. That's good, yeah. A holistic approach to health. Let's not just focus on one organ or a gland or what have you. One problem, one symptom. We take on the whole view. Yeah. You know who also takes on a holistic approach? An invading army, you know? They don't always just run in there with bombs and guns and take over. No, they think about it. They have to take over the minds of the people too. So they holistically look at the situation and think, well, one thing we need to do is take over the airwaves, TV stations, the radio stations, and start talking to the people, because we need to take on a holistic approach to civilizing this barbaric country that we're about to liberate. But I'm just going off on one here. Best practice is moving towards a holistic sexuality education approach, which addresses the realities of young people's lives, the diversity of sexuality and gender identities, oh my god, that have emerged and continue to emerge, and the challenges young people face in navigating relationships in a positive and healthy way. How do these people know? How do these people know how to what exactly are they saying they're doing here? How do they know how to address the realities of young people's lives? Because they're doctor and professor? Is that it? Because they're managers. They're the managerial class. What do you call that? Black fella from the United States. That's not me being racist. That's me trying to narrow down who I'm talking about. He's conservative, well known, on national television. He's not a outlier by any means, and he wrote a book about how the managerial class, he didn't use that exact word, but basically the professionals, the doctors and the engineers, remodeling society, deciding that they have the answers, they can fix everything, and then they go around tinkering with things, tinkering with society itself. This is what these doctors and professors are doing. Is there a confirmed, absolute scientific model that's watertight that describes young people's lives the diversity of sexuality and gender identities that have emerged and continue to emerge? Is there? No, there isn't. It's all fucking theories. And you can't just go monkeying around with people's lives with fucking theories. Hey, I think I'm beginning to explain why the sky is fucking blue. Wow, I never thought I'd fucking make it. And the challenges young people face in navigating relationships in a positive, healthy way. Oh boy. Yeah. Because, we all have a crystal clear fucking memory of what it was like to be a child when we're in our 40s and 50s, don't we? And yeah, we know exactly what's going on with children that are born fucking 30 years after we were, 40 years after we were. Yeah. Fucking rock solid science. I will stop ranting, sorry. Alright. So, quoting the paper, Catherine writes, the basis of this approach is young people's right to learn about themselves and their bodies in a positive and participative process. Oh my God. See, these are all the positive words, right, that they're throwing out to you. They even use the word positive because, they're hacks. It is positive. Oh my God. Positive. It's so great. Everything's fantastic. There's nothing to worry about. It is positive and enabling, as opposed to approaches that are fear-based or concerned almost exclusively with the risks and dangers of sexual activity. I will concede a little bit of ground there. I do remember the first time any real, I could have been taught about this earlier in primary school. I just decided to forget about my schooling as quickly as humanly possible. So, maybe, but all the memories that I do have were in secondary school, and they were very fear-based. And that's not the way to approach people. The problem is, it does need fixing. If, as a society, we insist that we need sexual education, then, the current model sucks and it needs to be fixed. But are we going to let these fucking professionals fix it? No questioning the children themselves or their parents, by the way. That's not involved in this at all. It's all fucking social science theories. I will stop ranting and go back to... Oh my God. It is positive and enabling as opposed to approaches that are fear-based and are concerned almost exclusively with the risks and dangers of sexual activity, the paper states. Areas pinpointed for particular consideration and review include consent, what it means, and its importance. Because, human beings need to didactically be taught what consent is. Because we don't learn about boundaries or anything like that in our childhood or anything like that. It needs to be installed like a piece of fucking software. Yeah. Thank you, you fucking derogatory motherfuckers. I have to reel myself in here. Sorry, folks. This is disgusting. I'm sickened by what I'm reading. Developments in contraception, healthy, positive sexual expression and relationships, safe use of the internet, social media and its effects on relationships and self-esteem, and LGBTQ plus matters. Wow, really? You're going to teach children all those things? And then also teach them reading, writing, arithmetic. And then, whatever secondary level things, fucking history, home economics. Oh my god. How are they going to find the time to fucking do all of this with children? While educating young people about sex is a topic from which many parents and teachers shy away, there has been no shortage of opinion expressed to the NCCA. An online questionnaire has attracted 2,700 responses to date. Oh my god, 2,700 responses in a country of 4.7 million people? Wow, what an achievement. And remains open until February 15th. The National Parents Council, primary, has sent on more than 3,000 responses to a questionnaire it facilitated. The NCCA held a consultative symposium with representatives from 70 organizations, agencies, and government departments. 70 organizations, agencies, and government departments. Fuck! What? Am I the only one that finds that a bit fucking strange? Really? Have I crash landed on an alien planet? 70 organizations with interests in our children's sexual lives. Yeah, that sounds really fucking healthy for a society. It has received more than 35 written submissions and has been consulting directly with schools and other bodies. Overall, a very strong level of interest. Wow. Very impressive. Separate from the NCCA review, the Oireachtas Education Committee recently published a report on RSE with 25 recommendations based on a series of public hearings last year. The committee calls for a new national mindset around sex education, and its proposals include specialist teacher training and legislative changes to ensure that a school's religious ethos is no longer a barrier to how RSE is taught. So in other words, if you're a Catholic and you want to send your child to an honest-to-God Catholic school, then your rights are going to be broken. Wonderful. And by the way, who trusts the Oireachtas Education Committee? Who trusts any of these fucking political scumbags? Never mind the fucking middle management who worm their way into lifetime positions on fucking quangos like NCCA. But politicians, sure, we fucking hate them, right? They're scum of the earth. They're running our country into the ground. But sure, tell us how we should teach our children about sex, please. That's a great idea. In relation to content, the legislators suggest broadening the curriculum in a number of ways, including to encompass teaching about issues such as abortion and pornography. Okay. As the NCCA work progresses, Academics are also pushing out boundaries about what they believe needs to be taught in a modern RSE class and are reaching out to schools to share their work. Dr. Louise Crowley, I wonder if she has any relation with... A law lecturer at University College Cork has developed a bystander intervention program for third level students. It is available online to all UCC students since last week and is now delivering a modified version for use in secondary level schools. The aim is to create a culture of zero tolerance around sexual harassment in all its forms, both verbal and physical. Okay, I'm not going to pass judgment on that until I read the content. We shouldn't be passive bystanders in the world. That's why the world is so fucked up. The program educates students around issues of consent, and a key focus is to empower witnesses to call out unacceptable behavior. Okay. She says their research shows that the vast majority of students share an abhorrence of unwanted advances and abusive behavior. And once they know that, it gives them confidence to speak up, knowing they will be surrounded by like-minded people. Makes sense to me. NUI Galway's SMART consent research, SMART, capital letters, what the fuck that means. Everything's smart these days. And we're getting dumber. NUIG's SMART consent research team recently received a grant of 1.25 million, well, of course they did, for what, I don't know, to allow for the expansion of its active consent program. It targets 16 to 23-year-olds, and its focus includes a positive approach to sexual consent so that young people feel confident and skilled in communicating with their partners about intimacy and critical thinking about pornography. All right, we're going to have to see more about this. We're going to have a bit of a review for this. This article goes on for a while, and no, it doesn't actually. It's we're almost near the end. It was developed following research showing how ill-prepared most college students are at managing sexual decision-making scenarios. Really? Students were generally dissatisfied with the sex education they got in school, and sexual harassment emerged as a big problem. Sexual harassment as a result of a bad sex education? Is that what she's saying here? It doesn't make sense. Active consent involves a cross-disciplinary team from various areas of expertise within NUIG, psychology, sexual health promotion, and drama and theatre studies. Huh? One of the team leaders, Dr. Poderick McNeila, says the approach is combining Irish research data with proven youth engagement methods and the creative arts to support a full range of sexual consent messaging. Wow, that's not human whatsoever, is it? Over the next 4 years, they will establish partnerships across schools and sports settings, as well as at third level. The first they have in place for second level schools is the WISER program, WISER program, AIDS West, delivered across approximately 50 primary and secondary schools in the west of Ireland. One of Dr. McNeila's colleagues, Kate Dawson, a fourth-year PhD student in child and youth research, will lead the development of an online resource on critical porn literacy for the program. It will be based on her research with college students to get their input on what is needed for teenagers in terms of porn literacy. Because, yeah, people in college today, yeah, they know exactly what it's like to live in a porn-saturated world. That doesn't make any blindest bit of fucking sense. You know, we're talking about a phenomena that we've only seen in the last 5 to 7 years. College students didn't grow up in that environment with high-speed broadband and PornTube or Pornhub or whatever the fuck. YouPorn, that's what it is. Fuck, there's so many. Her findings, published in the Journal of Sex Research, recommended reducing shame around engagement with pornography and instead helping adolescents to develop critical thinking skills around porn to allow them to challenge sexual media messages, to expect realistic outcomes from their sexual experiences, and to develop the capacity for fulfilling sexual relationships. Now, I will say, it was a personal opinion. You can take this any way you wish. This isn't all doom and gloom, like, say, Gemma or Doherty wants to say it is, unless she knows something we don't. Right. Jesus, motherfucker. It is now 43 minutes past the hour, and that was a long segment, wasn't it? So let's take a bit of a break for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. This is The Message. Stay tuned, folks.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Broken glass everywhere, people pissing on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise, got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with a touch of repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Standing on the front stoop, hanging out the window, watching all the cars go by, roaring as the breezes blow. A crazy lady living in a bag, eating out of garbage pails, used to be a fag hag, such a dance to tango, skipped the life and tango, a zircon princess, seemed to lost her senses. Down at the peep show, watching all the creeps, so she could tell her stories to the girls back home. She went to the city and got so diddy, she had to get a pimp, she couldn't make it on her own. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. My brother's doing best on my mother's TV. Says she watches too much, it's just not healthy. All my children in the daytime, Dallas at night. Can't even see the game or the Sugar Ray fight. The bill collectors, they ring my phone and scare my wife when I'm not home. Got a bum education, double-digit inflation. Can't take the train to the job, there's a strike at the station. Neon King Kong standing on my back, can't stop to turn around. Broke my sacroiliac, a mid-range migraine, cancer membrane. Sometimes I think I'm going insane, I swear I might hijack a plane. Don't push me, call, I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. My son said, Daddy, I don't want to go to school, cause the teacher's a jerk, he must think I'm a fool. And all the kids smoke reefer, I think it'd be cheaper if I just got a job, learn to be a street sweeper. I dance to the beat, shuffle my feet, wear a shirt and tie, and run with the creeps. Cause it's all about money, ain't a damn thing funny. You got to have a con in this land of milk and honey. They pushed that girl in front of the train, took her to the doctor, sewed her arm on the game. Stabbed that man right in his heart.
Gave him a transplant for a brand new start. I can't walk through the park cause it's crazy after dark. Keep my hand on my gun cause they got me on the run. I feel like an outlaw, broke my last glass jaw. Hear them say you want some more, living on a seesaw. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Say what? It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you'll go through. You'll grow in the ghetto, living second rate, and your eyes will sing a song of defeat, hate. The places you play and where you stay looks like one great big alleyway. You'll admire all the number book takers, thugs, pimps, and pushers, and the big money makers. Driving big cars, spending 20s and 10s, and you wanna grow up to be just like them. Smugglers, scramblers, burglars, gamblers, pickpocket peddlers, even panhandlers. You say I'm cool, I'm no fool, but then you wind up dropping out of high school. Now you're unemployed, all non-void, walking around like your pretty boy Floyd. Turned stick-up kid, but look what you done did. Got sent up for an 8-year bid. Now your manhood is took and you're a make tag. Spend the next 2 years as an undercover fag, being used and abused to serve like hell. Till one day you was found hung dead in a cell. It was plain to see that your life was lost. You was cold and your body swung back and forth. But now your eyes sing the sad, sad song of how you live so fast and die so young. So don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Yo, Mel, you see that girl, man?
Yeah, man.
Yo, that sound like Cowboy, man.
Cool.
Yo, what's up, money?
Yo.
Hey, where's Creole and Raheem, man?
They upstairs cooling out.
So what's up for the night, y'all?
Yo, we can go down to the fever, man.
Check out Junebug. Hey, yo, you know that girl Betty? Yeah, man. Her mom's got balls, man.
What?
Yeah,
She got hurt.
What just happened? What the hell?
Fire free! Don't nobody move nothing. Y'all know what this is. Get him up. Get him
Yo,
up.
man, we down with
Break him
Grandmaster
down.
Flash and the
Grandmaster
Furious Five.
What is that, a gang?
No,
Shut up. I don't want to hear you up now. Shut up.
Revolutionary radio here
Yo,
on Eclectic Vibrations Radio. Good old Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Why do I feel the need to declare that track again? Bad. Bad radio. Folks, like I said in the last segment, why are we trusting this government to teach our children about sex and what they should know about relationships? And okay, I can't, cast immediate judgment on some 4-year PhD. She may have some solid ideas, but come on, the Oireachtas? You fucking kidding me? When you see what else they do to this fucking country, and the privileges that they take for the privilege of having them as our dictators, why would you let them do anything? Anything, remotely... Okay, I've got to look something up here. It's not yet posted to my social media feed, so I've got to look into the backlog, because it's a really good image. Posted originally by People Before Profit, but I removed that People Before Profit little tag, because fuck People Before Profit, but they do make some good propaganda. Fine Gael priorities: 270 million for junior bondholders, 2 billion building children's hospital. That's a huge fucking scandal. Magnitudinous fucking corruption in there. 900 million untaxed for the banks. 100 million a year to private schools. 3 billion a year to PESCO's, EU's PESCO army. That's a lot of fucking money for a little country like ours to spend on a imperialist army. That's almost $1,000 per person when you think about it. And that's roughly 750. My arithmetic isn't brilliant, but something in the region of 750 or 800 euro per person on this island has to pay for the EU army. And the wrap up of this, this, I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by other work-related things popping up in the corner of my screen. I really should make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. But the wrap up of the propaganda here is pay for the nurses. You know, X, like, you know, they had a tick behind everything. Never mind. Nurses strike. It's been going on for a while now. And it's being tied in really closely with the Give Us a Reason to Come Home campaign, where nurses, midwives, and many other skilled Irish people who are living abroad have no chance of actually coming home because they will be underpaid and underappreciated, or probably not even hired for their skill sets. Hashtag give us a reason to come home. I just like to keep track of the hashtags. We've got a randomer, Maureen O'Sullivan on Twitter. She made a very good point. Fear-mongering on RT Radio 1 by mentioning possible adverse effects on patients due to strike is poor journalism. For years, nurses have been screaming about that real adverse effects on patients have been happening due to staff shortages. The very real reason we are striking. Hashtag nurses strike. And that was definitely worth a retweet. The revolution is always alive and burning in some form or another on Twitter. It's gotten to a point where, well, people are ghettoized. Honestly, like, who's liking or loving or whatever the fuck your tweets? Who's retweeting your tweets when you make such excellent observations, such as this from Owen O'Donnell? Anyone that is close to a nurse or has been unfortunate enough to need one knows the care and support they provide to patients and their families. It's time they receive the same support, only asking for what they deserve. Or Sultan of Ping Pong. Of all the anti-nurse propaganda, media propaganda, that Live Line episode was the worst I've heard, using desperate cancer patients and others in agony and waiting list for ops to attack them and advance the agenda of the gov that created the waiting lists. Reprehensible. Holy shit, I just knocked put down some equipment. It's grand. We're still on air. Who sees this? No one sees this. We have been ghettoized. Ghettoized, for sure. We are truly in a sorry state when it comes to our medical establishment and, well, anything else, really. Just also, take a look at our immigration problem by looking at the hashtag Give Us a Reason to Come Home. There's a very popular image. It deserves to be shared around. 6 panels. Irish people living abroad, bearing the tricolour, bearing banners, reading "Give us a reason to come home." You don't see this kind of commitment from people in Ireland generally. It's almost like the Irish that don't live in Ireland are more intelligent and more passionate and more sensible. We have images of Melbourne, Doha, wherever the fuck that is, Sydney, Saudi Arabia, Perth, London. We're talking about hundreds, possibly thousands of active activists who want to come home to our beautiful country, who want to be a part of our country. Only we're being vampirized by the establishment. And it's not going to change until we actually fucking change it. But hey, I'm not going to solve this issue, and neither are you. Not tonight, anyway. So it's sad. It's sad because it seems that the only direction we're going in is open air revolution. Riots in the streets, like in France and beyond. And we may, and fair play to her, Gemma O'Doherty made this point, and a woman after my own heart, she made this point. We're going to see the same that we've seen in France with the government employing military-grade weapons against their people. Tear gas, nerve gas. The French are gassing their own people on the streets. This is going to happen here if we actually take to the streets ourselves. And it seems that that is the only direction that this is going to go in, because we have been taught that this is how you make change. You go out into the street and you cause trouble. You cause a ruckus, not necessarily a violent one, but you choke up road systems and block buildings, blah, blah, blah. And then you go home feeling better about yourself. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the riot police come out and beat the shit out of you for no good reason. We need a more intelligent approach to what's going on in this country. So let's change track.
Going on. I said, baby, I wanna boogie till the early dawn. Beg the DJ for some anthem, gonna keep her on the floor. He said, don't you worry, brother, I'll keep her coming back for more all night. Flick, baby, flick my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Flick, baby, flick my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. It's coming on 5:36 p.m. Thermometer says my temperature's about 110. I said, baby, close the curtains. I think I lost my mind. She said, you just keep your shades on, boy, everything'll be fine. Flip, baby, flip my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Baby, flick my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Keep your shades on. Who is it? From dusk to dawn. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. I can't help you, sweetheart. You say you'll go tonight to find some truth beneath my sunglasses. Well, that ain't the way I kinda do my Sunday school classes, 'cause I want to preach. I get down to these. Flip, baby, flip my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Baby, flip my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Flip, baby, flip my switch, blow my head off. If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. Flip, baby, flip my switch, blow my head off.
If you're gonna cry, keep your shades on. With that, oh, screaming about me, about me, about me, no. With that, oh, screaming about me, about me, about me, no. With that, oh, screaming about me, about me, about me, no. With that, oh, screaming about me, about me, about me, no.
Keep your shades on.
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 Right. Okay, let's jump onto the sanctity of life kind of tract. Morals and stuff like that. Outrage, this Fox News, outrage as a Virginia abortion bill sponsor saying plan would allow termination up until birth. This is Delegate Kathy Tran, Democrat, and this is herself speaking, making the admission.
How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
Or physical health.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about the mental health.
So, I mean, through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay. But to the end of the third trimester.
Yep. I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
So, where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs of that she is about to give a birth, would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would
I understand
make at
that. I'm
that
asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
All right, there you go. Ever since, I think, the Irish referendum on abortion, the unborn child's right to life, more appropriately stated, things have heated up around the world in terms of abortion. You're seeing a lot of push from both sides. While you have that in Virginia, you also have Ohio passes heartbeat abortion bill. And of course, CNN has to include the byline, leader cites Trump's election. So a heartbeat bill. This is a general idea that's going around the United States, which basically states that if a so-called fetus, an unborn child, has a heartbeat, then you can't abort. It's because it's human. It's a human being. Very interesting development. And we see also a harder pushback against abortion in South America. It's all looking up. It's all looking up, but I don't just bring up the abortion story for its own merits. We have to look at the other side of the equation. My favorite piece of propaganda during last year's referendum run-up was the idea that if we open the door to this kind of thinking, if we degrade our morals to this stage, we will end up considering euthanasia more readily. There's been talk of, I believe in Sweden, allowing people to be euthanized so that their organs can then be harvested so that they would be, more healthier. Which is a really utilitarian way of thinking of the human body. And we said this, a few of us, the few of us that actually understood how propaganda works, how conveying concepts works, worldviews, shifting worldviews. I personally like the little snap phrase, if you tolerate this, then your granny will be next. Well, here we have BBC News wanting to die at 5 to midnight before dementia takes over by Andrew Bomford. Euthanasia, assisted suicide. It's coming up strong in Central Europe and spreading in terms of legality and public interest, perception of this as a moral and acceptable thing. Now, you can opt for the idea that, hey, look, this is a person's life, they can do whatever they like with it. But by now, we have already established that the slippery slope is not actually a fallacy, if in fact the slope is slippery. Because slopes are slippery. That's... you can't escape it. We're on a moral trajectory, and it's not going to stop with people making an informed and emotional decision to end their lives before they, lose their minds to dementia and lose their loved ones to dementia, or get so sick that they're in pain constantly. It's going to go further, and pretty soon ideas of China and Israel harvesting the organs of people who they capture, or the less fortunate within their own borders. We will see that as less of an offense. We will be, less horrified by it as time goes by. We'd be less horrified of morgues in New York being used to harvest organs without the permission of the deceased or their family, or hospitals who murder patients. And this does happen, okay? This does actually happen. People get murdered for their organs. It's just the way society goes. In the same way that you have a country like the United Kingdom, they have had abortion pretty much legalized carte blanche for decades now. 1 in 5 pregnancies end in abortion in the UK. 80% of those abortions are of completely healthy children. And you're not going to see that in the first few years of this new legalized abortion situation in Ireland. It's a culture, it's a perception that is generated over time. People grow up in an environment and they are desensitized to it in a way that their parents and grandparents are not desensitized to it, because the parents and grandparents remember a time when things were different. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's the idea. Well, let's look at what this Dutch lady is saying here in this BBC article. It's not unusual for Dutch patients with dementia to request euthanasia, but in the later stages of the disease, they may be incapable of reconfirming their consent. One doctor is currently facing prosecution in such a case. But fear of being refused is pushing some to ask to die earlier than they would have liked. Annie, I'm not going to try and pronounce that, was never in any doubt. She said, "The neurologist said, 'I'm sorry, but there's no way we can mistake this. It's Alzheimer's,' says Anik her daughter, describing the moment her mother was first diagnosed. She said, 'Okay, then I know what I want.'" That's the mother. An ex-brother, Frank, chips in. Maybe she hesitated for 5 seconds and said, "Now I know what to do." They both knew she was referring to euthanasia. You could say Annie's story is a textbook case of how euthanasia is supposed to happen in the Netherlands, with very consistent and clear consent. But there are other cases where the patient's consent is less consistent, and at the final moment, less clear. Annie's story was featured in a film called Before It's Too Late by the Dutch director Gerald van Bronckhorst. In the documentary, viewers follow her journey through Alzheimer's, ending in her death by euthanasia at the age of 81. They see a proud woman who brought up 3 children alone, who enjoyed mountain climbing and had a strong religious belief, laid low by dementia. "I used to go climbing and skiing or whatever," says Annie in the film. "In the village, they said, 'Annie, she's always on the go.' I'd put my rucksack on in the morning and start hiking. I'd walk all day. Now I can't do anything. I get confused all the time." Annie wanted people to understand her decision, so she allowed the camera to film on the day she died. She is shown sitting on the sofa, looking relaxed and positive. Her 3 children are with her, joking with the 2 doctors who have arrived to carry out the euthanasia about a special meal they had the previous night. We went to a 3-4-star restaurant," Frank tells me later. "I asked her, 'What do you want to do before you die?' We had a beautiful meal, laughed and cried. There was no tomorrow that evening. It was so special. But then you go home. It was very hard to get any sleep the night before." Anique describes finding a letter that her mother wrote that night. She wrote a letter to God, asking him to take care of her children. She knew that if there was a God, it would be a really warming, forgiving God. Frank adds, she said, "It's a pity I can't send an email back to my children to tell them what it's like." The film shows the doctor taking great care to make sure that Annie is fully aware that she is choosing to die by euthanasia. He asks her several times if she is sure she knows what she is doing. "You're sure you want to drink the mixture I'll give you?" the doctor asks. "You know it will put you to sleep and you won't wake up again?" Annie says, "I thought it through once again last night, from start to finish and back, and in the end, this is what I want, purely for myself. This is what's best for me." She does not hesitate when she is handed a glass of clear liquid containing a lethal dose of sedative. She drinks it, complaining only about the bitter taste. Her family is shown hugging her as she goes to sleep for the last time. "She drank the cup," remembers Frank later, "but it took a while. The sleep was getting deeper and deeper," adds Anika. "It was very gentle. But a couple hours went by and Annie was still sleeping. This led to a surreal scene, described to me by Gerald van Bronckhorst, who was filming. She was asleep on the couch, and then she started snoring. And the family started to say, 'I'm hungry, shall we have a sandwich?' So we're all chewing around this lady who's sleeping on the couch and dying. But this shows how normal life takes over, even in a situation like this. How normal life takes over, even in a situation like this. Worried that Annie might actually wake up, the doctors eventually gave her a lethal injection. It was 20 seconds, and then she was gone, says Frank. Frank and Anique say they always supported their mother in her decision, despite any reservations they felt about it. It's hard to see your mother die from euthanasia, but it was not our decision. It was her decision, says Anique. There is no right or wrong decision. It's hard to decide you want to die, but it's as hard to decide, I think, that you want to live. She hated it when someone said, "It's so brave that you made this decision." She said choosing to live with dementia is just as brave. Frank adds, "A good friend of mine said, 'You have to stop your mother. As a son, you have to stop her.' I said, 'No, I'm not going to. I support her.' His mother said to me, 'You're killing your mother. You're murdering your mother if you go on with this.' It's hard to hear." Arguments like this are common among families and friends and reflect the wider debate which began in the Netherlands in the 1970s when doctors first started carrying out so-called mercy killing fairly openly. The arguments continued in the run-up to the legislation of euthanasia in 2002 and have never really stopped. The number of those opting for euthanasia has grown steadily, particularly in the past 10 years. In 2002, the Dutch authorities were notified of 1,882 cases. 15 years later, the figure was 6,585. And here we have, wow, okay. I'm going to leave it there because I don't have confidence in my reading aloud abilities. I'll just read this chart. 2002, 1,882 euthanasia cases. 2003, 1,815. But by 2007, it started to grow steadily and incrementally, I would say. Progressively, sorry. I'm not, like I said, I'm not good with my arithmetic or my economics or statistics. But I know that this is kind of fucking scary. Because I'm wondering what it is that's causing so many people to decide to kill themselves in a legal and medical framework. It's quite interesting. There's one aspect of this phenomena that, like I said with abortion, comparing Ireland to the UK, its popularity, it's the collective consensus that this is okay now, that this is accepted, moral, an option that's actually on the table. There's another aspect, though. How many of these people kill themselves, or more appropriately, ask to be killed because they're sick? And these statistics are really just a reflection of a society that's getting sicker and sicker. Because that is what is happening. This is what we're experiencing. Instances of cancer and dementia, primarily Alzheimer's, are increasing. Drastically increasing. And my concern is that a society that isn't so intelligent is not going to ask, what are the causes for these ailments that make people want to kill themselves, but instead get behind the idea that, well, people have the right to kill themselves. There's another aspect to this. Children in their teens and young adults are actually opting for euthanasia. I'm not making this up. It's not in a drastic amount of people, but it is happening across Europe. There are some court cases pending about that, and maybe those doctors involved and medical staff involved will actually win those cases, and those will be precedences that will open our world up to basically assisted suicide at any age for depression. People simply deciding, hey, his life thing, it hurts too much. I'm going to flick the off switch. Let me be completely unprofessional here and do a little on-the-fly research, okay? Back a sec. Okay, I'm not getting any immediate results, but I remember a very reputable source, and I think maybe listeners might be able to help me here, but it was observed by watchful eyes. A suicide was depicted in a TV show in Germany in the 90s, and the days following that, saw a spike in suicide in Germany. The people who watched that show, or it was just in the collective consciousness because it appeared on a TV show, more people topped themselves. I would implore the listener to look up a YouTuber called Jeff C. He currently goes by the name of Jeff Censored, because he boasts, and he's correct to boast, that he is the most censored channel on YouTube, most consistently censored. He will demonstrate to you loud and clear, if you give him the time to actually make his case, because he talks a lot of inside baseball. You gotta watch him for a while, pick up on what he's saying, because he's not interested in entry-level people. He's just talking about the truth. He is exposing the depression agenda, the suicide agenda, putting the idea out there more and more to basically stoke a pandemic. Just, typing in the search word suicide and media causing rises in suicide, we get results like The Guardian from May of 2018, are smartphones causing more teen suicides? Maybe they aren't, but just the idea that this is being spoken about. Teen suicide, is there an epidemic? Suicideinfo.ca. That's the Center for Suicide Prevention. the 30-year period, suicide among teenage females have risen, while those among teenage males have fallen. What is causing the rise in teen female suicides? Suicide rates rising across the US. More kids are attempting and thinking about suicide. Study time.com. Teenage suicides in England and Wales rise 67% since 2010. That's independent.co.uk, September 2018. So that's a pretty steep rise, no matter what the statistic is. This is an agenda unfolding right in front of our eyes, folks. And this is the... Actually, I should have been more attentive to where the show was going, because this is where I'm going to leave it off. Good luck. This is an agenda unfolding right in front of our eyes, folks. Just open up your eyes and see it. Watch it. Observe it. Because knowledge will set you free. So, to lighten the mood, to say goodnight, how about a little bit of satire, a parody? This is the brilliant parody artist Daniel Bostock from England. I forget the song that he rewrote for this ISIS parody, but enjoy. Have a good night, folks. Take care of yourselves and your family and your friends, because that's where everything begins.
You're weird, big beards. Your first cousin is your fiancé. He said Muhammad wants him to create a caliphate. Desert, pervert, healing infidels who won't convert. It's a fact, I'm Islamic and I'm standing on a rooftop throwing up maggots and beheading a Jew, selling blacks and women too. From the rooftop, throw 'em off, throw 'em off. You freaks, fuck sheep, mistreat 13-year-old girls. Hide out, blown out. You get what you deserve. You're strange, insane. One thing you can never change. It's a fact, I'm Islamic and I'm standing on a rooftop throwing up maggots and beheading a Jew, selling blacks and women too. From the rooftop, throw 'em off. It's a fact, I'm Islamic and I'm standing on a rooftop throwing up maggots and beheading a Jew, selling blacks and women too. From the rooftop, throw 'em off, throw 'em off. Beheading a Jew. You shoot your own troops and stone women for wearing skirts. tits and cut their clits off. It's a fact, I'm Islamic and I'm standing on a rooftop throwing up faggots and beheading in jail, selling blacks and women too. From the rooftop throw 'em up. It's a fact, I'm Islamic and I'm standing on a rooftop throwing up